Hey everyone, I'm really excited about this. It's interesting with everything being virtual this year, and not in person where I normally just get to hug everyone, which is probably for the best because Lord knows if anyone had COVID, I'd end up with it. So, um, well, without wasting any time, let's go ahead and hit the ground running since this is all about speed and efficiency. So, um, in this breakout session, I wanted to go over a few things. And this is kind of just a quick overview. We're going to go over what you need to do before you even get into CET and the things that you need to take care of there. Then some of UI setups and key bindings and all the important things that are going to really affect how you work throughout a project or throughout anything you do within the software. And then I want to cover really the meat and potatoes is going to be those general tips for speed and efficiencies. So, the little things that you may not have known you could do or things that you forget are even there that you learned during beginner training, but, you forgot about. And then going over some good habits and things that you should really try to get yourself accustomed to. So let's go ahead and hit the ground running. So before you even get into CET, I wanted to go ahead and touch base on some really important things. And a lot of these come from Michael Beal, who some of you guys know as the CAD trainer guy. He's really freaking awesome. If you've never been trained by him, you are so missing out. But I wanted to go ahead and bring to the surface this thing that I don't know if a lot of people know about, and I use it literally every single time I start a new project. So in CET, he has a push button tool palette that's going to help you clean up your drawings. So you open up your drawing just like anything an A&D firm sends you, and you're just going to go through here and literally click the buttons. So, they'll turn all the layers on so you can see everything and there's nothing hidden or hiding in your drawings. It'll do push button, delete layers. It'll do your purge, delete hatches, make everything the same color, really everything. So that way you can just get everything out of there, get all the crap out of your drawings that we don't care about. And really you want to make sure that those drawings and the DWG files are smaller than 1 MB to import into your CET file. If they're larger than that, CET has a really hard time keeping all of that data active for you to be able to work around with. So that is really, really, really a fantastic tool. And I think he's actually putting out a new one. Mind you, this one is from 2019 CET experience, but it is awesome. And I see a question, what version of CAD is this available for? And yes, it is available for full, and you can also use it for AutoCAD Lite. So good question. And then how do you get this? So I know Michael Beal posted it last year on the CET conference briefcase. So I will at least be posting this one that I have. He might have a new one, so keep an eye out for that. Okay. So the next thing I want to cover are key bindings, and this can be a little complicated, especially if, oh, I see another question. I'm going to go back here real quick. So what do you do if your CAD file is larger than 1 MB? Usually cleaning it up with that tool will make it below that. So, and then, let me see, I'm just making sure we're getting all the questions from that one. I'm not sure where the recordings will be, so I'm sure Rachel will let us know. And no, you cannot use that tool palette if you do not have AutoCAD. So you do have to at least have AutoCAD Lite in order to do that. So key bindings. CET comes with a lot of really handy standard key bindings, or they're actually called keyboard shortcuts. I call them key bindings. A little bit of a gamer nerd, so but this is probably an old diagram, but here's just a list of the ones that I like to use, and I use literally hundreds of times a day. For A for copy, I remember it as being add, S, which toggles single multi target or select mode, to where that way you can switch between those without having to go all the way up and click on it in the bar. D for dimension, R for position or reposition, and then F for insert favorite. And I have more tricks to show you guys after this. But then, of course, a lot of your control keys, your normal Control S for save, Control Z for undo. We know we use those a lot. And then Control B for creating blocks from a selection you have, and not Control G. I need to fix that. It's just G to create a group from a selection. And then Control R for your remover tool, and F2 for Photo Lab. So these are some really quick ones that I like to use that are standard. So then here are some that I actually do custom, and I'll show you guys how to do these. But and I won't go over all these here, but this will be available on the briefcase afterwards. But these will help you really make things really, really fast to where you don't have to go through 15 different menus. It's literally just a keystroke. So I'm going to come over to my CET here. And if you go to File, Key Bindings or Keyboard Shortcuts, I have this key bound to the letter K, which is one of the ones that I'm suggesting in my presentation, so you'll see. But you'll come up with this little menu here, and it'll have drop-down boxes for each of your tools. So I will go to the one that I just said about key bindings. If I can find it, I have it all in my other thing over here. Here we go. So it's under File, and if we go to Keyboard Shortcuts, you can see that I already have it assigned to the letter K. So you can just type in K here and then click Assign. If it's already assigned to something, it'll say here in this box, and you can go to it and remove it. So you have a lot of different options that you can do here. A lot of other things I have done custom are things like M for move, because old school CAD people, we remember that. I have Shift F assigned to save as favorite. I love that F is insert favorite, but sometimes I want to quickly save something as a favorite instead of having to right click and find it in the menu. And then Shift D for chain dimension, since D is just dimension. And just a few other handy ones. So this is something definitely to keep in your back pocket to make sure that you're working faster and faster. All right, I'm looking at the questions. It looks like Haley's asking, will helplines eventually get key binding options? Or have an option to repeat the last command? That actually, the repeat last command would be a really nice function to maybe put in as a feature request. So I think that would be awesome, because I'm used to doing a right click if you have nothing selected and repeating the last command like CAD. So I think that would actually be really awesome. So, but those are just some quick ones. I won't go into every single one. So your UI setup, just like if any of you guys are PC gamers, okay, you might know setting up your user interface within a video game is really important to make sure you know where all your controls are, and where you can access everything really quickly and you don't have to go looking for it constantly. So I wanted to go through kind of some tricks for setting things up that some people may not know or may not remember, because again, a lot of these they go over in beginner training, but Lord knows by the time you're through beginner training, you don't remember half of that stuff. You just remember the stuff you needed to actually get your project done. So the first thing I want to go through is locking tabs and collapsing and minimizing like tab groups for your extensions. So I'm going to come over here into CET again. And over here, you'll see I have show all tabs shown, and I have a group of them here at the top. Okay. Now, when you hover over them, you'll see these little pins out to the side, and you can pin specific extensions that'll show up at the top that you use frequently. So you don't have to go scrolling through the list of 5,000 extensions that you have. Come on, everybody has that struggle. So that is one of the really, really awesome ways to do that. The other thing you can do is, let's say you have an extension. I used Newcraft as an example because they have so many within theirs. I have it collapsed, which is this little arrow. You'll see these little arrows because there's so many within that line, and I don't use it as often as some of my other extensions. So I keep it collapsed. So that's something to think about. Okay. I am looking at a question from Jody. They're asking, is there a way to isolate and or delete all help lines with one command? I am not sure that there is like a multi-select. I know the remover tool usually is pretty quick when you go over those lines, and you can hover over them and delete them fairly quickly. And it depends on what you're using your help lines for. Honestly, I use help lines a lot to align stations, and I leave them there because nobody ever sees them when they print. So I oftentimes leave help lines in my drawings for the duration of the project. So if anyone has any other tips for that, please feel free to join that in the chat. So the other thing that I wanted to go over, which is one of my favorites, is actually customizing your quick tabs. So you have these 4 little buttons up at the top of your toolbar, and not many people remember you can actually customize those. So they come standard as select all to show all, and you don't really want to do that. So let's come over here. And right now, the blue one is always defaulted to show all of your tabs, okay? And you can actually customize these other 3 and make it show whatever you want. So if you're a steel case dealer, maybe you want the green one to show steel case. If you're Miller, if you're whatever, you might want your primary line to be that first one, and then maybe a secondary that you use a lot. Maybe it's Han, maybe it's OFS, maybe it's global. And then, use the red one for whatever you want. A lot of people do project symbols, things like that. But to customize those, you'll come over here to this bar. Yeah, that's right, Tamara. I need more than 4 quick selects too sometimes. So over here, I'm going to go and click on this little button here, and it'll pull up this tab, okay? And I can customize quick buttons by clicking on the quick buttons button here. And you'll have drop downs, and you can click from any of these. The blue ones are going to be all of the ones that are defaults or ones created by the manufacturers or by Configura. You'll see I also have a black one down here called H&I. I work for an all steel dealership, so I use a lot of H&I lines. So I use all steel, Han, Maxon, Gunlock, all of those. So I wanted all of those under one custom tab. So here's how you do that. So here we can go to show all tabs, and it will pop down to where we can choose from any of these. So I'm going to do an example, okay? And I'm going to make a new one. So I'm going to select all steel, and I'm going to click copy. All right. And I'm going to name this H&I 2. All right. And now it'll show up with this box that has cloned what is normally under the all steel tab. And then I can select Han, Gunlock, and Maxon from this list of extensions that I have installed. And now that will be an option that I can choose for my quick select buttons. Okay, so you could do a similar thing for Exemplis. So, you have your sit on it, IDEON, symmetry, you could put all of that under one tab if you use those a lot. So that is really just a quick way how you make those. And then you can go back into your quick buttons, and now that'll show up at the bottom of my list in black. So I can select H&I 2, hit close, exit out of this, and now that quick button when I hover over it is H&I 2. So all of my all steel, Gunlock, Han, and Maxon will show up under there. So another huge one, and I use this every time I'm in here. I like custom tools. So some of you, especially if you're new to CET, might have noticed that when you hit the C button, it opens this weird custom tools tab and you don't know what it is and it looks weird and it's really annoying because it takes forever to load. So, well, now you're going to actually learn what it's used for if you don't already know. So I actually have this rebound to Shift C to where I can use C for other tools. But one of the things that I absolutely love using is the custom tools, and it actually popped up over here in another window. So I'm going to expand it. And so it'll come in blank. It'll just show like tools, I think, and then have nothing in it. Okay. So I find that some of these tools I use a lot, especially for drawing power plans or annotating drawings, doing install drawings, what have you. And I find it really annoying if I'm drawing like panels and I don't want to go all the way back to my CET designer tabs just to pull in a label tool. So this is where custom tools comes in. I'm going to go ahead and go over to that tab to where you guys can see how to do this, and I'll make one. So I'm going to make one. Okay, so I clicked on this little start here, and I'm going to double click here to rename this, and I'll call it CAD Tools 2 since I already have one of them. Now it'll say no content, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to my CAD Tools tab, okay? And any of these sections that I want, they have this little bitty gray arrow next to them that says send to custom tools when you hover over it. So I want to click on the arrow and you'll see it will add it to this open tab. Carla asked a question, can these custom tools be shared as a reusable file? Right now, I actually think they might be able to. I don't know that they were before. So we'll see. It looks like we might be able to. Floating toolbox save option. So that's definitely something that's cool. I will have to save these for the rest of my dealership to use. But yes, so I'd say the answer to that is yes. So I will test that further. Good, 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 good. So, oh, when I got the dialog box to open to the side, Hillary, it's default the letter C to open custom tools. I have it to Shift C. If you don't know the keyboard shortcuts, you can come under Tools, and it's under Custom Tools right here. You can click on that and it'll pop up. So that's just a nice, easy way to add things. Like let's say that I added one that I didn't want in here. You can also click on it and say hide CAD tools and it'll remove it from that toolbar. So it's definitely really cool. And that is, I have 4 of these that I use primarily. So I'm going to delete this CAD tools 2 that I made. I have my regular CAD tools. I have edit graphics because I do that a lot for like if I have a dual fabric or a special or something that I'm making that's weird that I have to, well, edit the graphics for. I put those here. Materials for when I need to paint materials on certain things or on P-spec items. And then I also have a tab for project spec. So that is what I use personally. So that is definitely something that will make you work faster to where you're not having to constantly go back in here and go find these tabs and find these tools. They're right here and you can keep them right on top while you're in your manufacturer extensions. Okay. So that's kind of setting up your UI. The rest I want to go through is going to be, tips for efficiency and just like general working stuff that you may or may not know or utilize. So blocks and grouping is probably one of the biggest ones. So I am a really, really big advocate of blocks. I use them literally every day and for everything. I will use them from everything from accessories to workstation components to tables to guest chairs. I mean, everything. So if we come back over to our drawing, I've already started some of those. So when I come in here, sometimes they can mess with calculations, Christy. It depends on the manufacturer. I have had bugs where it has before, but at least for drawing, these are really, really easy to get them through. So in these blocks, I have a 4-pack of 6x8 stations. And when I come into the block, it's going to be blocks within blocks. So we have blockception. All right. So I wanted to talk about component blocks. So component blocks is really where some of it starts. And some of this is also manufacturer based. I know some manufacturers do not support component blocks, but I wanted to at least show you. So I'm going to just copy this off to the side to kind of show what you do with a component block. Okay, and if I explode these, okay, and we're going to delete this one out. So I have all of my items drawn in. I have all of my panels here, and now I want to make what I drew for this block, well, into a component block. All right, you're going to highlight it and then right click on it, and there should be a box here for create component blocks. Okay, and when you do that, it's going to create, you're going to have this little, your block dialog will pop up, okay? And it's created a component block. So you'll want to rename that. But now when I come in here, you'll see that the background's turned pink. So that lets us know that we're in a component block. And it just includes these items here that are not part of your panels, all right? And when we copy it within our block, so if we take this and we copy that block, see, it doesn't copy the panels with it. And now when I place it, it's telling me, hey, look, you're missing panels for this. So it's actually really, really cool. If we come into the ones that I've already made, you'll see that I only have the immediate panels that are here. So it knows, hey, in order for this typical to work, I have to have these 2 panels and I have to have these 2 panels. And it has to be those exact panels. So that's something I think is really awesome. It keeps you from making mistakes. And when you're working on a project that's like 500 workstations, because let's all get real, it happens. This is going to save you so much time, especially when somebody says, can we make the work surface 24 inches deep instead of 30? And you're like, well, crap, now I have to go through and change all of my blocks. But if you had made component blocks, you only have to change 2 of them. So that'll definitely save you a ton of time. So yes, I make them for each size that I have, and then for the right and the left-handed configurations. So Carla, to answer your question, how I made it recognize the panels like that is I made it a component block, and it included all of the panels that were connected here. So if I go into this block and if I actually select my remover tool and remove, let's say, those panels that aren't actually connected to it, now when I come out of here, now it's only recognizing those ones that it's attached to. So that works with component blocks. So component blocks and cloning the block. Cloning blocks are completely different. I will show you what that means here in a second. But yes, that is component blocks. Now I have those component blocks made into this 4-pack block. So this is what I'm meaning by blockception. And no, Sarah, I don't know if there are any limitations on component blocks as far as blocks within blocks. I do blocks within blocks all day. I still would only recommend doing 1 floor of a job per drawing. I have done floors, like 11 floors worth of one project like this, saving them as favorites and bringing them in. And I only ever explode my blocks when I'm having trouble with tagging or with calculations. But besides that, I would really discourage exploding your blocks if you can help it. So then yes, we have a question about the difference between component blocks and cloning the block. So if I come out here, I'm going to delete these to where it doesn't get all crazy in my drawing. To my drawing. So you see I have these 2 4-packs of workstations, and it is the same exact block. But let's say on one 4-pack, they want higher panels along the spine or higher screens. Okay, well, obviously if I go into one of these, it's going to change them in both of them since they're technically the same block. So what I can do is I can right click here and say clone block. And now what it's doing is it is technically a different block from what it was before. So now I can go in here and I can change the panel height of that screen to be 15 inches from the 7.5 that it is. And now you'll see that it is different from this other one. Where if I had done it before, I'll just copy this over here so you guys can see it in 3D. If I had come in here before and changed that panel height and come out, you see now it does it on both of those. So it's done on this one and this one. So that's what cloning a block will do. And then I highly recommend renaming those. All right, we're looking at Q&A here. Will CET eventually get the ability to warn the user to let them know when there are items on top of each other or that they are placing a component on top of each other? I think that's one of those that it depends on what you're working with. I don't really have that issue often, and usually I can tell when I've placed a component or something on top of the other, especially with work surfaces, because when you rotate them, you'll get like this weird striated look because it can't figure out which one to display on top. So that's kind of my suggestion there. Again, just a general CET experience or tool is, remember, like, this is a tool to make us work faster and more efficient, but it still doesn't replace a designer. So make sure you're still double checking all of these. So Nicole asked, do I have issues with updating a block that's within a block automatically? For example, I have a block, all right, within a few different blocks, and I find that I go to update one and yep. So, and every block from them updates everywhere. Yeah. So that might be something you might have to do an F5 refresh or a clean start if you're having issues with it. When you go into a block, say for instance, if I went into that component block and changed the, the style of the leg and it didn't change over here in this block, then I might hit an F5 refresh and it should do it. Haley's asking, I also wish there was an option to turn off rendered view while in 3D to have it show like shaded version like Revit does. So yes, however, I think that is one of those that the processing power just isn't necessarily there yet for the software with it being PGC. So I find for live design, you don't really need that because you can quick render a typical for a client, but that's just me. Heather's asking, why should you rename the block and what's the benefit of it? That is a wonderful question. So if I come up here to my dialog, okay, you'll see that I have these blocks named. Okay, so I have my 4-pack clone, now that I would rename. When you originally make a block, all right, so we're gonna just explode this guy and reblock him. All right, it comes in as 31 components and then at a timestamp. So if you have a bunch of different typicals, let's say you're doing a 2-pack, 4-pack, 8-pack, 10-pack, and you just have them all blocked and not renamed, you're going to have all of these 31 components at 1:40 p.m. 53 components at 1:50 p.m. and you're not going to know what any of these are. So when you open up your block dialog, you're going to be like, what is this? And it'll do the same exact thing when you scroll over it. It'll show that name. So it's very helpful to have that renamed to where you know what it is. And also if you're working with a lot of other designers, if another designer is going to jump into your drawing to try to help you and they're like, what are all these blocks? Why are the names all crazy? It's just a really good housekeeping habit. So I'm going to delete that guy. Okay. All right. So that's kind of the down and dirty on blocks. Grouping is a little bit different. So I actually grouped these tables here, which you'll see when I'm in multi-select mode, they show in a blue outline. When I'm in single select, they will show in purple and only one item. So I work in multi-select most of the time. And these will just hold the items together. They won't actually make them a group. So I find these really helpful for ancillary areas and things like that where I might want to make them different. So I have these two. I have one here and then one over on the other side of my drawing here. It's the same group technically, but if I change one, it's not going to change the other because they're just being held together, but they're not a clone or a block of each other. So that's just a little tip there. So let's see. Stephanie is saying she finds when she copy and pastes the block, it affects if it reads as the same block throughout or not. Can you have multiple blocks with the same name but different blocks? No. So that's something, if you rename the block and you make it the same name, it's just going to override it because it's the same name. So, you know, if you had a private office and you're doing 3 different options or something, you would have to rename it like private office option 1 or private office option 2. So that way you have to differentiate between them. Otherwise, it doesn't know. So that's the difference between blocks and groups there. And I find it's really awesome. Create group. Okay, so Jody says create group has never been useful. I'm assuming it's because I'm not using it correctly. Can you demonstrate how to use it? So absolutely. So like I said, I usually use groups for things like ancillary items and things that I'm not going to necessarily need to mass update everywhere in the drawings. So if I copy this group over here, I can move it as a group so the items stay together. But like, let's say this one, they just want a different color or a different shape on that ottoman. I can change that and it doesn't change all the other ones. So I find it really helpful for just small areas where I'm not going to need to have a ton of different options or things, you know. So that's what I find. Let's see, Brittany says, do groups help with file size? We operate under the assumption that using blocks helps keep the file from getting too big and running too slow. Is that true? And what are the benefits? So I find that blocks, it's really 6 one way, half a dozen the other as far as file size. So what I find blocks useful for is the drawing speed of it and helping reduce errors. Because if you're copying, you know, 18 6-packs, good Lord knows you might miss grabbing a cantilever or something if you're working in single select mode, or, you know, you might accidentally place an extra power in feed, or, you know, the, the possibilities of mistakes are really endless. But that is something I find very powerful for using blocks for. Brittany is asking, do groups help with file size? Oh, so that was the, sorry, same one again. Stephanie says, she's saying if she's copying a block from another drawing with the name, and then bringing it in as a favorite. Okay, so that one, yes. So yes, you will probably need to rename either the blocks in your drawing currently or the ones that you have saved in your favorites to where you're not copying them over. Okay. Let's see. So Abby's asking, is there a way to mass replace one block with another? Say I have a block titled CH-01 and I want to replace it in every location with block titled CH-02. So really the best way to do that is to change it within the block. So if, for instance, if these chairs were all blocked and I had them all CH-01, I could just go into the block, change the chair, and then go out of the block and they're all changed. So the possibilities for blocks are really, really endless. Just don't go down the rabbit hole. I really like to use them for workstations and offices, large conference rooms, and training tables too. Training tables, like I'll put the table and then the two chairs and I'll block that and then I'll copy that all the way around for all the training rooms. All right. So I want to make sure we keep moving here. So favorites, yes, a lot of us are using favorites. They're really, really awesome for client standards, or if you have multi-floor projects where you're using the same furniture on every floor. And I also find them really handy for even things like typicals for block plans, and even frequently use things like power notes. So if I come over here to my drawing, let's say we're ready to give some power core locations, okay? I can hit F to insert favorite, all right? And it will come up, this was actually, we'll do this since I was working on this earlier. It will come up with a browser and you can go find the favorite that you're looking for. So this folder we're opening up to was actually another project, but here, I can come up here and we have a file on our shared drive for designers. And so I can come here to my CET designer and I can go to my favorites folder, and under floor core verbiage, I have power notes. So I can open that and it automatically will come in with grouped items for all of my power notes. So I don't have to remake those every single time. The verbiage is going to be the same. And then you can also even create these into blocks if you wanted to. So favorites like that will help. Also, if this typical, let's say, they have 5 different locations, maybe one in Atlanta, maybe one in Charlotte, maybe one in Houston, and they're going to be getting all the same workstations. You can just save this as a favorite by either right-clicking and going to Save Favorite, or if you changed your key bindings. And you can just click Save Favorite, save it in the client folder wherever you want, and then you have it to use later. And it's really handy for standards and things like that. So definitely, favorites are awesome. Tagging is another one of the things I love to talk about. So tagging is one of those that I feel it can make or break how fast you can work on a project. So this also falls under good housekeeping habits too. If you haven't tagged your project correctly or efficiently, it can be a nightmare when you have to actually get it out for order. So if we come over to our drawing, I've started to tag this one, okay? And my part tagging dialog here. So tag 1, I've tagged each of the areas. And usually tag 1, I'll do the room numbers for. So let's say it's 101-private office, 102-open area, whatever. That's how I'll use for tag 1, since that's what's going to show up in my manufacturer under the tag that's going on the box. So that way, when the installers get it, they know exactly where it's going to. Tag 2 is something I like to use for typicals, phases, anything like that. It's really depends on what it exports to for your ordering software. Tag 3 is also a good one I like to use for phases or proposal numbers, things like that. And then, of course, you have all of your different things you can tag by. So you can tag by individual items, you can tag by area, you can do custom shapes, all sorts of things. So if they're like, hey, we want to order everything but the little ottomans, the little ottomans will save for phase 2. Okay, I can come in here and I can say phase 2, okay, and I can tag individually and I can tag those little ottomans that they said they want to save for phase 2. And now when I go into my calculations view or to edit views for installs, you'll see that you'll be able to filter it by those. And we'll go over filtering here in a minute. All right. So let me see. All right, Brittany is asking a question reverting to the CAD cleanup. When you get the CAD files and they've been converted from Revit, okay, it's always a nightmare to clean up even with Michael's cleanup tool. Even after you get it cleaned up, sometimes it slows down. Okay, your CET drawing when it comes in to rendering and working in Paperspace, etc. Any tips? So that's one of those I'd probably have to see the drawing. I oftentimes get drawings from design firms that have a lot of heavy furniture in them. And usually I find if I delete out the furniture, it's fine. For situations like that where you're trying to draw over the furniture, I like to make sure to pull in a PDF or have a PDF off to the side of my drawing or even print it out in front of me to where I kind of know where I'm putting furniture. So Carla's asking, how does tagging work with blocks? And you say you have a chair that's tagged differently within a workstation block. Absolutely. So what you can do, you can tag within blocks as well. So for instance, my workstation's here. All right, I'll use tag 1 as an example. All right, and we'll make a new tag and we'll do CH-1, okay? So I'm gonna come in here and I'll click that CH-1, tag individually. Oh, look, we need to tag even further than that. Let me remove that. So I can do tag individually, click remove up here and remove that tagging. There we go. So I actually need to go deeper into my component block. Just kidding. They're on top. So here's the perfect way to explain doing a different selection method, which happens. So I have just those 4 chairs selected. I can come in here, click on CH1 and do apply to selection. And now it is only doing those chairs. So now when I come over to my drawing, I can click on those and you will see them in our calculations view. So I'll pull up calculations view here real quick. All right, so I'm going to close my main view because you can't filter stuff out of main view. So if I come over to filter, I can now filter and see only the task seating, and you'll see there are my 8 chairs. And you'll see the 4 that I tagged individually, and then the 4 from the other block that are not tagged. So yes, you can absolutely use that to sort it or show it differently in article views within visibility settings for Paperspace, all sorts of things. So definitely. Tagging is highly underrated. So Ginger's asking, she thought only generic or general markings show on the product sticker on a box. Do tag 1, tag 2, and tag 3 also show up on that sticker? So that is a very manufacturer specific question. That is something you would probably have to ask your installers about, or if your PM knows what exports onto those tags. I know specifically for All Steel and for Team Design, it's tag 1. So it is different for each manufacturer, so make sure to ask. Okay. Yeah, so that's part of here what I say here. Make sure you know what you're exporting to, because that can definitely change. It's different for a lot of them. All right, filtering, we kind of just touched on that, but one thing, Filtering is so powerful because as you could see, we had it tagged correctly, and you can come in here to calculations view and tag that separately. So it's really easy to do that. And you can also do filtering by these tags in your art or in your visibility settings for 2D viewports as well. So if we have this, and I'm going to go ahead, add my drawing. I trust that you would make yours prettier than this. You can select those visibility settings, and you can come in here under filter, and you can actually, let's say we want to turn those chairs off. I can check that little X over the eyeball button, and you see it turned off those chairs that we had tagged for CH-1. So let's say I want to turn those back on. I can click the visible button or uncheck it. Or let's say they just want to get the workstations right now and nothing else. So I can turn off those collaboration tables and turn off the task seating. And so now it will only filter what I haven't checked for that tag to. So you can definitely come in here and play with those to hide things that you want to see and that you don't. Something I turn off every single time I come in here, but it's not here because I don't have them in this drawing, are pick lists. So pick lists are a really, really awesome thing to add to remind yourself notes, you know, hey, don't forget your touch-up pane, or, you know, hey, I need to order master keys, what have you. But you don't want them to show up on your drawing because clients are like, what is that? You can come in here and you can uncheck pick lists from this filter as well. All right, Haley has a question in Photo Lab. Can you also set individual tags to show or not show when rendering? Tagging is the best. So tagging is the best. I don't know if you can do ghosting by tagging, and I don't think you can. That can be a really awesome feature request though. So that is definitely something to look into. Okay. So schemes is something that can also really help streamline your workflow, especially if you have something that is going really, really big across multiple drawings. You can save a scheme from one drawing or from your typical drawings and then apply it as you add new things or make changes on multiple floors, or especially for clients who have standards. So this is really, really helpful. I'm not going to go into this because I know schemes are still a little different for every single manufacturer, but definitely make sure that you are utilizing your schemes, and you can apply those by categories and part tagging as well. So let's say, you know, you have an HR department and they want blue fabric on their panels, but then the sales department wants green fabric. You can actually change those within schemes and apply them per the tag. So that will make it really, really easy to do. Then in quick properties, a lot of manufacturers still have propagate tools available. I know OFS is one. I think Han is one. We're trying to get them to add that back into their PGC because I think some of them are missing the propagate tool. But that is absolutely fantastic for when you're doing ancillary and you're like, well, I don't really want to go dig out this one particular chair out of schemes. I just want to slap the same fabric on all of them. You can absolutely do that. So you could do it by equal tag selection or by all, and then select the same product and propagate to all of those properties. All right, so the last section I want to go over is creating good habits out of everything that we have learned. So before we get there, I see we have a question. How do you show tagging in the 2D drawing and keep it there? So yes, how you would do that is, let's say I have this, but I want to see what I have tagged. You can come down to the bottom and you can click on tags, and now it'll show those outlines of those areas that I have made tags for. It will not show individual tags. It will only show the tags for areas. So that is something, if you are looking at specific areas with a client as far as what is phase 1 or phase 2, that might help. I know you can also show these on your 2D viewports. I find that sometimes they can get a little messy just because I don't think they're very clean sometimes. But that is, I know you can do that. If you want individual tags like a CH-1, CH-2, my recommendation is to come in here and on my custom tools, I have the label maker. So I would just come in here, click that CH-1, and then click it next to the chair and then type another label for, CH-2. I don't have caps lock on. And then that's how I would do those, just where I have them in the 2D view if I need to specify that if I'm not doing a separate imagery package. So that is how I do those. And then you can even make that a block. So if you want that label to stay with that chair, you can also make that a block or a group. So yes, I've done that before too. Guilty. So creating good habits. So whenever you're starting a new drawing, regardless of whether I have a CAD or not, because let's get real, salesperson's going to come to you and say, oh my God, I need this drawing in this office. And I'm like, well, do you have a CAD? And they're like, well, no. Okay. So I always put a CAD 0 point in my drawing because at some point they usually end up finding a CAD or they're asking for a CAD of the drawing. And if you export a CET file as a CAD, sometimes CET will freak out if you don't have a 0 point because it's like, oh my God, no 0 point, don't know what to do. So whenever I start a brand new drawing, I come in here, I add my 0 point, I throw it down, and I immediately escape the tool or shake it off and then hit L to lock it. Because Lord knows it's the most annoying thing when your 0 point's moving around or you're moving furniture. So that is what I do. I'm going to delete this one though because I already have one in my drawing. So that is probably one of my pet peeves when I come into projects that other designers have been doing. So I'm like, there's no 0 point in here, there's a CAD. And I need to re-import a new CAD and then I don't have anywhere to line it up to. So Jenna's asking, what does the CAD 0 point do? So CAD is a vector-based software, so everything is off of X and Y and Z coordinates. What that does, because CET is PGC based, it is giving CET a location that says this is 000. So that way it is aligning everything. And when I get an updated CAD from my A&D firm, I already have a 0 point in my drawing, so I can easily import it. And if as long as the A&D firm has kept everything in the same place, you'll be able to place that new CAD in just right where it was, and you're not going to have to reposition all of your furniture and all of your tags and everything you've done. So yes, I will absolutely show you one more time how to enter the 0 point in. I have it on my CAD tools, but I'll show you where it is if I go to show all tabs. So show all tabs, if you go to your tools, which is the little compass and protractor, and then it's this button right here, CAD 0 point, which you can also rebind using Michael's key bindings and rebind it to the 0 key. And you just click on that and you place it anywhere in your drawing. I do this very first before I do anything else. So it will definitely save you a lot of time later when it comes to updating CAD files. Because Lord knows we've all done it where we forgot to put the 0 point in and now we have to realign the CAD with everything that we've done and it's a nightmare. So that'll save you a lot of time. The next thing is installing the project information extension. I think this one might actually come yes, thank you, Christy. Also lock it so it doesn't move. So install that project information extension. I actually, for my dealership, have all of our pay-per-views where when we open these, and of course it came over on my other monitor. When I open these, they have auto-filled everything in the title block from project information. So what I can do, and that's going to take just a second to load, is I can come up here. Okay, so you see over here my title block, it's pulling from all of this information. Okay, so I can come up here to edit or to tools and project info. All right. And I can enter this information here. You can make your title blocks to auto load from anything you want. And those will really help you get all of that together to where you have all of it in there. It's auto-filling in all of your beautiful installation plans, and it's just heavenly. We went over this as far as renaming your blocks to where that way you know what your blocks are and what you've made. You'll thank yourself later, really. Like, really do trust me on that. I've come into drawings where I'm like, oh no. Do the same for your paper views and your article views. When you have 20 paper views open and you're like, they're all named 11 by 17 landscape. Which ones do I want to print? I don't know. So yeah, make sure you're renaming those. And again, just to make sure that your CET files are staying that smaller size, that your CAD files are nice and cleaned up. You don't have a lot of junk gunking up your drawing. You want to make sure that your drawings are working as fast and efficiently as possible. So Brittany M asked, is the project information extension on the marketplace? Yes, it is. It's free. It's under tools at the bottom. And then I wish paper sheets could be different. Sheets could be organized or categorized to put into folders. Yes, please submit that as a feature request. I would love to have folders to be able to put installation drawings in one and to put these drawings in another. I think that is absolutely amazing. So can you explain tagging? Oh yes, before you start drawing furniture, I have that as a note here. So yes, in your plan, I like to actually tag my plans per room number before I even start drawing furniture, because sometimes you'll get these floor plans that have 100 rooms on them that you have to tag. And if you've already drawn furniture in them, your tag is like your tools are going to stick to every piece of furniture. And I just want them to be nice and neat. So I usually tag my plans before I ever draw furniture into them. So. All right, did we have any other questions? I know we're right towards the end, and I've been trying to be good about answering them as we go through, but if anyone else has some additional tips or tricks that they want to share, absolutely. So can you pull your calculations into an Excel where it shows the tag and the entire drawing for the tag legends? So yes and no. I know that you can pull in calculations views or article views to show on your paper views, and you can choose what columns they're showing to kind of show a tag legend with individual part numbers, so you can do that. Exporting it to Excel is a little bit more complicated. The only way I know of to do that is to actually go into another software, either Team Design, CAP 2020 worksheet, or Project Spec, and then export it to an Excel from there. So on my custom tools, where did I get the edit graphics? So those ones come standard with CET. They are under the edit graphics tab. There's edit meshes and edit, I think the other's just edit graphics, but there are two of them. They have little wrenches on them. You'll see them. So how do I go to edit with calculations for all the tags? Copy all the cells, open. Oh, okay. So you can go to edit. Okay. Open an Excel and paste. There you go. All right. Thank you, Haley. My block dialog box used to show, but now only the component amounts show. How can I make it show up? All right, so I'm trying to understand that. That might be something where I'd have to see it to actually understand why your blocks aren't showing. It might be minimized. So maybe try seeing if that works. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. It was an absolute pleasure. I loved working with y'all, and I really hope that you get enjoy your next session.
Thank you, everyone. As a reminder, if you are collecting CEUs, please fill out that CEU drawing that you have access to from the briefcase. And then if you do have additional questions, you are always welcome to post those in the forum. There is content on the live stream currently, and then the next session starts at 2:40 p.m. Eastern Time. So thank you, everyone.